Welcome to the Cognito Pod, everyone. Today we're going to be diving deep into a pretty interesting topic. Human in the loop, or HITL. Like, you hear about all this AI stuff, right? But what's really fascinating is how much human involvement is still absolutely crucial, like behind the scenes, making it all work. So that's what we're going to unpack today. What HITL is all about, where it's most needed, the nuts and bolts of how it works, and even like what the future holds for all this stuff. We've got a ton of really cool sources to draw from. So let's jump right in.
Yeah, I think it's important to kind of start with this idea, right? Everyone's talking about fully autonomous AI, right? Like it's just going to take over and do everything. But the reality is AI today just doesn't have that like human touch. It can't quite grasp all those subtle things like context or those weird anomalies that we just naturally pick up on.
Right. Yeah, totally. Like, it can process tons of data,
Yeah.
but it's still missing that like deeper understanding. So if AI isn't, fully independent yet, what exactly is this human in the loop thing all about? Like, what does it really mean?
So human in the loop, or HITL, it's basically like integrating human intelligence and expertise, right into the heart of the entire AI process from start to finish. It's really a collaboration, right? Humans are training these AI models, testing them, refining them, giving constant feedback to make them better.
So it's like a partnership and ongoing thing. Can you give us like some concrete examples of how this actually works in practice? Like, what are humans really doing?
Oh, absolutely. So think about machine learning, right? Say you want to train an AI to, I don't know, recognize different breeds of dogs. Well, you need humans to actually tag like a ton of images. This is a golden retriever. This is a poodle, and then humans got to validate the AI's output, basically double checking if it's getting it right. And most importantly, they give that corrective feedback like, hey, AI, you messed up here. This is how you should do it next time. So the AI can learn from its mistakes, right? Get better over time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's important, right? Because we're not just talking about some like goofy recommendation engine messing up,
Yeah.
in fields like healthcare or transportation. AI errors can have some like seriously scary consequences.
Right, exactly. Take AI in nursing, for example. It can be super helpful for monitoring patients, but, nursing unions have brought up some real concerns. They're worried about like over-relying on these automated protocols, potentially messing with the quality of patient care. So HITL in this context is all about making sure AI is actually helping nurses do their job better, not like replacing them or compromising patient care. Human oversight is still essential.
Yeah, for sure. And what about self-driving cars? Like, that's a huge topic, right? But where does this HITL stuff come in? Where are the humans and all that?
Autonomous vehicles are a perfect example, actually. Yeah, the ultimate goal is full autonomy, like cars driving themselves completely. But the reality is these systems are constantly running into these like really complex, unpredictable situations, right? Things they might misinterpret and potentially cause accidents.
Yeah.
And that brings up like a whole bunch of legal questions about liability. Who's responsible if something goes wrong? So HITL is crucial for making sure these systems are safe, and accountable. Sometimes you even have like remote human operators who can step in and guide the vehicle in tricky situations. It's a work in progress, definitely.
Wow. So the human element is really all about bringing in that like nuanced judgment, making sure the AI isn't just efficient, but also responsible, right? Like acting in a way that aligns with our values. So let's get into the specifics. Where exactly in the whole AI workflow is this human in the loop approach absolutely crucial?
Right. I mean, anytime you have a situation where AI might struggle, things like ambiguity, context, ethical considerations, anything where the real world gets messy and unpredictable. Self-driving cars, medical diagnoses, these are areas where human guidance, human error correction, and just making sure the AI is aligned with our ethical and societal expectations, that's where humans really make a difference.
All right, so walk us through it. Like, what does the AI workflow actually look like?
Yeah.
And where are those key points where HITL comes into play?
Okay, so the first big one is data labeling and training. Raw data is, well, it's raw, right? It's messy, could be biased, could be super unclear. So humans have to step in and clean it up, categorize it, annotate it. Like they're the ones making sense of the data so the AI can actually learn from it.
Can you give us a real world example of that?
Oh yeah, think about social media. Platforms like Meta, they have like armies of human moderators, right? They're labeling tons of content, posts and comments and all that, so their AI moderation systems can like learn to distinguish between, hate speech and sarcasm, for example. Without those humans, the AI would just be totally lost, making all sorts of bad calls.
Yeah, that makes sense. It sounds like a pretty massive undertaking, actually.
Oh, it totally is. This whole AI training data industry is huge, like billions of dollars. Companies like Scale, AI, Appen, they're providing these labeling services to all the big players, Tesla, Google, Amazon, everyone.
Wow. Okay, so data labeled. What's next? Where do humans come in again?
The next key point is model testing and error correction. Like no matter how good an AI model gets, it's going to make mistakes, right? So humans have to jump in, identify those errors, correct them, and actually fine tune those underlying algorithms, the brains of the operation.
Have there been like any specific cases where this was really important, like really made a difference?
Oh yeah, definitely. Google, they had this AI dermatology tool, right? But initially, it wasn't as accurate at diagnosing conditions on darker skin tones. Turned out, the training data was biased, not enough diversity. So human dermatologists had to step in, retrain the model with a much more diverse data set. It shows how crucial human expertise is for catching and fixing those biases.
That's really interesting. And who's doing this error correction? Is it just like anyone or?
Not just anyone. These are often really skilled people, sometimes even PhDs, like companies like OpenAI, DeepMind. They have these specialized AI trainers. Their whole job is to refine these massive language models, like ChatGPT or Google's Gemini.
Wow. Okay. Data labeling, error correction. What's another big area where humans are needed?
Another crucial one is decision-making and risk management, especially in those like high-stakes fields, finance, law enforcement, medicine, where an AI recommendation could have huge consequences. So human validation is super important there.
Okay, can you give us like an example of how that looks in practice?
Sure. Think about investment banking, right? AI can analyze all this market data, and suggest trading strategies. But human traders, like at Goldman Sachs, for example, they're still overseeing everything, right? They're accounting for any like unexpected events or using their judgment to prevent big losses.
So it's like the AI gives the suggestions, but the human makes the final call.
Exactly. And even though like a lot of Wall Street transactions are handled by AI-driven systems, human traders are still super important for, compliance and making sure no one's doing anything shady.
Right, okay. So what's another area where that human element is super important?
Oh yeah, customer interactions and support. I mean, chatbots are everywhere now, right? But they're still pretty clunky, especially with like complex issues or anything where emotions run high.
Yeah, I think everyone's had a frustrating chatbot experience at some point, right?
For sure. Even Amazon, they're like leading the way with AI customer service, right? But they still have to escalate a ton of queries, like over 25% of them, to actual human representatives to get things sorted out. So there's a lot of investment happening in these like hybrid solutions, AI and humans working together. Companies like Zendesk and LivePerson are all over that.
That's really interesting. So what's the last big area where human oversight is absolutely essential?
I'd say the last one is monitoring AI performance and ethical oversight. Like AI systems are constantly evolving, right? They can drift, develop biases, in ways we don't expect. So we need regular human audits to catch those issues and fix them.
Can you give us an example of that in action, like how that works?
Sure. Take YouTube, right? They use AI to flag videos, sometimes they demonetize them, but content creators, they can appeal those decisions. And then human reviewers actually go in and look at those appeals, right? They can correct any errors the AI made and prevent unfair penalties.
Right. So it's not just about being fair to the creators. It's about making sure the AI itself is fair, right?
Exactly. And this is a big deal. Like the EU, they have this whole AI Act, right? And it actually mandates human oversight for AI in these critical areas like healthcare, policing. Companies have to set up whole compliance teams to make sure they're following the rules.
Wow. Okay. So we've talked about a bunch of different areas where HITL is important. Can we like zoom in on autonomous vehicles again, just to get a really clear picture of how all these pieces fit together?
Yeah, absolutely. So it all starts with data collection and training. Humans are labeling, billions of images and videos of driving. That's what the AI learns from. Then there's simulation and testing, right? Human engineers, they design all these crazy scenarios, test the AI in virtual worlds, then take it out to the real world and correct any errors that pop up. And then there's live remote assistance. Companies like Waymo, they actually have remote human operators who can like step in and help the vehicle if it gets into a weird situation it can't handle on its own. And finally, if there's a crash, there's a whole process of crash investigations and adjustments, right? Human engineers have to analyze what went wrong and update the AI models to prevent it from happening again. It's really a multi-layered process. It's important to remember that like no self-driving car out there today is truly autonomous.
That's amazing. So who are the big players in this HITL world? Like which companies are really invested in this stuff?
Oh, pretty much all the major tech companies are involved in some way. Google DeepMind, they use human evaluators to train their AI for, healthcare, gaming, all sorts of things. Amazon, they have human reviewers for Alexa for product recommendations. Tesla and Waymo, obviously they're using remote human operators for their self-driving cars. Even in China, they have regulations mandating human oversight in areas like media and facial recognition. It's a global thing.
So it sounds like the demand for people with HITL skills is like only going to grow, right?
Absolutely. As AI becomes more powerful, companies are realizing that human intervention is like non-negotiable. It's the only way to guarantee that AI development is responsible and effective, that it's actually beneficial for society.
Okay, so we've covered why HITL is important, where it's needed, but let's get into the nitty-gritty. How does it actually work, on a technical level?
All right, so at its core, HITL AI operates on this continuous loop, right? It's like training, inference, validation, refinement, and humans have a role to play in each of those stages.
Can you break those down for us? Like, what are humans doing at each step?
Sure. So first, you've got data collection and labeling. This is where humans are tagging, categorizing, cleaning up that raw data. Then comes model training and testing. Humans are evaluating how well the AI is performing, giving it feedback, making adjustments. Then you have real-time decision-making, right? Like in those high-stakes situations, humans can step in and override the AI if they need to. And finally, there's model refinement and continuous learning. Humans are constantly auditing the AI's performance, tweaking the algorithms, making sure it's always improving.
Can you give us like a real-world example of how this all comes together, maybe in like the financial world?
Yeah, so think about financial institutions using AI for, things like trade execution. They might use a system like JP Morgan's LOXM. The AI can analyze tons of data, assess risk, all that. But human traders, they can still adjust the risk levels based on like what's happening in the real world. Or they can override the AI's decisions if things get too volatile, too unpredictable. This is how you prevent like another flash crash, like what happened back in 2010.
Yeah, that's a really good example. Yeah. What about something like closer to home, like Amazon's Alexa? How does HITL work there?
So with Alexa, you've got linguists and annotators, right? They're collecting and labeling all those Alexa interactions. Then you have human reviewers. They're looking at how the AI is interpreting those phrases, correcting any mistakes. For those like really tricky questions, those edge cases, you need human refinement to make sure Alexa is giving the right answer. And then you have this whole layer of like bias and ethical oversight. Humans are auditing the AI's recommendations, making sure it's not promoting, harmful stereotypes or anything like that. It's a big investment for Amazon, but it's paying off. Alexa's error rate has gone down significantly because of it.
So it sounds like there's some real trade-offs to consider when you're implementing HITL, right?
Yeah, for sure. If you just go with AI only, it's cheaper, easier to scale up. But the problem is you tend to get higher error rates, and there's a bigger risk of those like unchecked biases creeping in. With HITL, it's more expensive, harder to scale because you need those human teams, but the accuracy is much higher, the quality is better, and you can really minimize those biases.
So who are the companies and countries that are really pushing the boundaries of HITL AI?
You've got the usual suspects, Google DeepMind, Tesla, Waymo, OpenAI, Microsoft. They're all investing heavily. And then China, they're going all in on HITL as well with massive human annotation teams.
But what about the overall scale of this investment? Is it significant?
Oh, it's huge. OpenAI alone has spent over $1 billion just on HITL-related model training. And the global AI data labeling industry, it's worth about $8 billion right now, but it's projected to hit $17 billion by 2028. So it's a growing market for sure.
Wow, okay. So it's clear that HITL is a big deal now.
Yeah.
But what about the people who are doing this work? Like, is this a real career path? Can you actually make a living doing this stuff?
Oh, totally. The demand for human trainers has made HITL like a legitimate career field.
What are some of the typical job titles and salaries? What can people expect?
So you've got like AI data annotators, they're usually making around $15 to $25 an hour. Then you have AI trainers focusing on like natural language processing, chatbots, that kind of stuff. They can earn anywhere from $80,000 to $150,000 a year. Ethical AI reviewers, they're making $60,000 to $120K. And autonomous vehicle supervisors, they're usually in the $50,000 to $100,000 range. And it's not just in the US or Europe either. Companies like Samasource are creating jobs in, places like Kenya, providing AI annotation services for companies like Tesla and Google.
That's really cool. So it sounds like a wide range of opportunities. Now, who are the key players in this HITL sector? Which companies should people be looking at?
There are a bunch, but some of the big ones are App011. They're focused on data annotation to make those AI models as accurate as possible. Then there's Scale AI. They're offering these really scalable HITL solutions for a whole range of applications like autonomous vehicles, mapping, all sorts of things. Lionbridge Technologies, they're doing a lot of language data services with HITL integrated, things like translation, localization. And then there's Samasource. They're really interesting because they're focused on ethical data annotation, providing employment in marginalized communities, which is awesome. And then there's Humans in the Loop. They're a social enterprise connecting communities affected by conflict, to digital work like real-time labeling. So yeah, a lot of different companies doing a lot of cool stuff in this space.
That's a really diverse group for sure. What about the bigger picture? Is HITL being adopted globally? Are the big tech companies really investing in this?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Global adoption of HITL is skyrocketing. And the big tech companies, they're pouring tons of resources into these frameworks. Google Cloud has integrated HITL to boost their model performance. Amazon, as we talked about, is using human reviewers all over the place for Alexa. Microsoft is investing heavily to reduce bias in their NLP and computer vision systems. And it's not just, the usual tech giants. In the US, a huge percentage of AI professionals say that human labeling is either important or essential to their work. In Europe, you have companies like Humans in the Loop making a real social impact with their work. And in Asia, China and India are investing heavily in HITL to support their rapidly growing AI industries. They've got those huge workforces, right? So it makes sense.
Okay, so final question. What's the future of HITL? Will AI ever get to a point where we don't need humans in the loop anymore?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, right? It's hard to say for sure, but my guess is that HITL is going to remain critical for, foreseeable future. We're probably going to see even more specialized AI trainers, like people who focus specifically on ethics, bias, explainability, that kind of stuff. We might see HITL being integrated with things like federated learning, which is this whole other cool area of AI. And there's even this idea of AI learning from AI, right? Maybe smaller AI models could train those larger ones, potentially reducing the need for human intervention over time, but that's still pretty far out there. The reality is the global AI workforce is projected to grow like crazy over the next decade. It could reach over 10 million workers by 2030. And the HITL AI market itself is expected to be worth a lot of money by 2035. So yeah, there's a lot of growth potential here. And what's really interesting is that as AI gets smarter, more capable, the need for human oversight in those really high-risk applications, it actually increases. It's kind of a paradox, right?
Yeah, that's fascinating. It's the more powerful AI gets, the more important humans become.
Exactly.
So to sum it all up, AI is powerful for sure, but it's not quite autonomous yet. And the humans are still the key to making sure it's used responsibly, safely, ethically. And for anyone out there interested in getting into this field, there are tons of opportunities opening up. Companies and governments are investing heavily to make sure AI is developed the right way, with humans in the loop.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for listening to the Cognito Pod, everyone. It's been a great conversation.